So 2017 is a new year for me, and it's time for a desk setup upgrade as well. So as the first thing that needed replacing in my setup, the keyboard is now the thing that I look most forward to when I come to use my computer. This is my completely unbiased and unsponsored review of the Corsair STRAFE RGB mechanical keyboard. So the unboxing experience for both was the same. You open it up and you're greeted with a pretty tight package. The first thing that you'll see is the very comfortable wrist rest, which we'll get to in a minute, a vacuum sealed bag of keycaps with key puller, and some manuals, some warranty info, and other paperwork, and last but not least, the keyboard itself. So as a first-time owner of a mechanical keyboard costing greater than $100, the setup was a bit ambiguous for me. On the back, you have one USB cord with a yellow splitter. One is for the keyboard, and one is for a USB pass-through. Now, in case you're not familiar, a USB pass-through gives you one USB port on the back of your computer. So you can plug in basically anything that's USB 2.0 enabled, which at the moment is my mouse, and it works great. So the build. It's solid. It's made of rigid plastic, but honestly, it gives me faith that it'll last just based on how durable and hard it feels. Even if I'm like Boogie 2988. So if you want to talk raw dimensions, without the wrist rest, it's 165.1 millimeters by 444.5 millimeters by roughly an average of 25 millimeters. Now, if you do decide to add the wrist rest to it, that will add an extra depth of 60 millimeters, which in my opinion is a must-have for this keyboard as it makes it so much more comfortable. So while you could use the keyboard technically without the wrist rest, I don't recommend it. And it's such an easy installation too. All you do is just snap it onto the bottom of the keyboard, and it's made of a really nice plastic that's actually the same as the keyboard itself, and it's got a nice textured rubber top which adds to the comfort. Now moving back to the keyboard, on the underside you have some info that's pretty typical for electronic devices, as well as two foldable feet which will lift the upper end of the keyboard by about 7 millimeters, which is what I use 99% of the time. Next, as far as accessories go, as I mentioned earlier, you have two sets of textured keycaps that can be used to replace either the WASD or QWERDF for FPS or MOBA enthusiasts. Now while this is a nice feature to have, especially in a more expensive keyboard, I wasn't fond of this. It didn't improve my game all that much, and I wasn't really a fan of the feel. Now, I will just say real quick though that keyboards are subjective. What may be terrible for me might be just what you're looking for in a keyboard, so make sure you keep that in mind, and I can highly recommend that you test one first. Alright, so now let's talk about what makes the board a keyboard. So first we'll start with the font. So the lettering of the font is aimed more towards the gamer, as it's more in extreme nature and look. And one thing I wasn't too fond of at first when it comes to keys was actually the textured spacebar. It's just a typical design when it comes to a spacebar, but it actually has a crosshatch design on it, and it's just raised ridges, which is supposed to improve grip. Now, while I don't mind it anymore, I wouldn't say I necessarily prefer it either. So once again, I would highly recommend you test this or any other of Corsair's keyboards at your local Best Buy, Micro Center, or some other place like that. Now the layout is just your typical 104 keys, which is good for fans of the standard keyboard, full size. It's nothing new, but it's bad for people who are looking for custom keys. So if you're a heavy gamer and you want some customization with your keys, outside of the standard 104 key layout, you're going to want to look somewhere else. Now the finish of the keys is a matte black, which is pleasant to game and type on. It's not slippery, and it doesn't track fingerprints everywhere like some keyboards that I know. Now where it gets really cool though is under the hood. So as I said before, in my personal copy, I'm rocking the Cherry MX brown switches, which I decided on after testing it with this keyboard tester. But in my opinion, the browns combine the great sound and feel from the reds with the bump and tactile feel from the blues. So now here's a quick sound test just in case you're curious. So while still on the topic of switches, it comes in reds, browns, and silence. Now, I have actually heard that it does come in blues as well, but that was very hard to find for me, so I could leave a link to a couple places where I have seen it before in the blue variant, but that's just up to you to find one. So moving up to the top of the keyboard, we have the brightness adjust for the backlighting, as well as the Windows lock button, which is a must-have for any high-end gaming keyboard. Now just to the left of these buttons, we have 3 light indicators for the typical num, scroll, and caps lock, and all the way to the left of the keyboard is a Corsair logo, which is only visible when it lights up, but it really adds a nice accented touch to the rest of the design. Alright, now onto RGB. So I have heard that on YouTube and just on the internet in general that it is the best of the best when it comes to RGB, and I can confirm. So what makes it all possible is the switch housing. It's actually clear, which allows for a better spread of the light throughout the keys and just makes for a more full light when you're looking at it, especially in the dark. Now the Strafe has one more trick up its sleeve. Behind the keys is actually painted white, which does wonders in reflecting the light and really filling in the cracks between the keys and making it much more full than some of the other keyboards that Corsair has made, say the K70 RGB for instance. So as you would also expect in a high-end product, controlling the light is very easy. All you need to do is download the software from Corsair's website. You may need to update the firmware of the keyboard, just so you know. You navigate to Profiles, Lighting, and you can choose from different presets such as Classic Rainbow Spiral, Type Lighting, Key and Ripple, and Color Pulse. And of course, as you would expect, you can customize the color of the individual keys or groups of keys to really customize it for your setup so it fits perfectly. So that's about it. For my needs, it's perfect. The layout is basic, but sharp, and the simplicity of the design stands out in a very good way. Sure, I game, but not too much, so I don't really need the custom keys. However, I do type a lot, so the durable build plus the MX Bronze switches makes so much sense. And the lighting is vibrant, yet fully customizable in both brightness and color. So all that paired with extra bells and whistles like USB passthrough, wrist rests, and extendable feet make the Corsair STRAFE RGB a fantastic choice for any gamer or anyone who wants to take their keyboard to the next level. Well, that's all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next week.